Hello and welcome to the All About X-Men Comics podcast, where you'll find recaps and reviews of all the most recent X-Men comics, as well as previews for upcoming issues. Please keep in mind this will include spoilers and adult language. I'm host Scorpio Moon, one claw short of a six-pack but still fighting. Hosting with me is
Johnny Alpha, and I'm sadly coming to the conclusion that even though through the years I've never really cared for the character Cyclops, I really want to be him now. And especially with all the cuties just like professing their love for him in the books this week, you know what I mean? Dude like Slim has got it going on with the birds.
Yeah, man, you've brought that up before, and it even also happens in Uncanny X-Men number 17.
Pow pow.
Uncanny X-Men number 17 begins with Madge dropping off the kids of the secret new Xavier school in the middle of nowhere for an impromptu training session. This kind of middle of nowhere happens to be a tiny little hyper-pocket-dimensional landmass in Montana where evolution is 130 million years ahead of time. So you've got, like, crazy dinosaur-ish looking things, hyper-evolved humans out of some kind of journey to the center of the earth or, you know, like future story kind of nonsense. I can't stress enough how much I love it, though, man.
Right. I mean, you couldn't be more right with like the crazy creatures. They reminded me of like the weird J.J. Abrams Star Trek monsters from the first Star Trek movie. I was just like, that's awesome. And totally find out that Fabio can use his power to choke dinosaurs with his balls.
Yeah, man, I absolutely love it. You just got these strange, never before seen kind of things, and then you've got mutants who in themselves are a little strange, and these two odd forces kind of working together. But I mean, this right here, to me, this is exactly what an X-Men comic should be. Young mutants learning about their powers in strange situations and on the run just for being who they are.
Right, I mean, it's like Bendis is slapping Jason Aaron over the head with, "This is how you raise a new team of young X-Men, you idiot. This is what you do." It rings so awesome. I mean, like, you got Triage, like, crying like a little girl, screaming out of control because he's so freaked out that the Cuckoo's got to kind of calm him with a psychic suggestion. There was several very clever things that they kind of pulled with these characters that I kind of got a kick out of. You know, you get Benji having a total heroic moment where he morphs into being one of the carrot-looking evolved humans to kind of save the day and save Celeste's life because they were choking her out mentally. And it was just a great issue to kind of help you get to know these kids just that much better.
Yeah, man, this issue really was a trip. Even the visually, you know, the colors, they change so quickly from like an all kind of purple background to fully green, then to like a yellowish thing.
Right. This artist is just on fire. I really like the almost psychedelic style of this book. I mean, it's almost like they were showing the guy from Marvel Knights X-Men. This is how you do an X-Men psychedelic comic, too. He was just trying to show everybody up with this issue, I think.
Yeah, that's the thing about art that I find myself debating with people a little bit lately. I mean, it's called art for a reason. You want to be able to tell what's going on, but not everything necessarily has to be photorealistic in that completely consumable comic book kind of way, if you know what I'm kind of getting at.
Right. I mean, I really love this guy's complete European cartoonist style that he does. I could totally see his work in like a heavy metal magazine or Metal Holorant or one of the several other U.S. magazines, you know, the other European mags that come over here. I mean, he's got that, what they call cartoonist style, more than like actual, like, normal graphic novelist artists run with. So, I mean, it's completely different for your average American reader, but I'm so glad that they've adopted it into an American book and they're like letting him completely run free with the style. There was one really odd cliffhanger in this book that I really wanted to get to the heart of, but they focused on other characters, so I think it's going to play something big in the future of this, but I really want to know what happened to Tempest, man. When her and Fabio are fighting the bird thing, she disappears, and then she comes back a few pages later, and nobody seems to notice, but her hair has grown 3 times its normal length, and she looks like maybe a year or two older. So something has happened, and like in this place, she has actually jumped evolution in an evolutionary manner as well, which she's completely freaked out, which nobody seems to actually kind of notice because they're too busy bagging on each other and being terrified for themselves. But I really wanted to get to the heart of that. She's one of my favorite new characters, and I'm just so intrigued by what could have possibly happened to her in that weird little time bubble.
Yeah, that's one of the main events, which they leave a little bit unexplained. Pretty much only the Cuckoos know what happened to her because they can read her mind. But obviously she was gone for a very long time, and something traumatic happened to her. She's got, like, serious, like, clothing damage. You know, her shit's all torn up. And it all makes sense, because, I mean, her power has to do with, you know, messing with the passage of time. And she's in a place where the passage of time is messed up. So you put those two things together, and yeah, something happened that they're going to have to just come back to later.
Right, and like she's also terrified of having herself healed, which is I found odd because when Christopher Triage tried to, you know, comfort her, and she slapped him and told him not to touch her, and which I found kind of weird because she embraced Hijack, she embraced Fabio, and she embraced Benji, but she slaps Christopher. There is something more to that as well, which I mean, like, I am so interested in that. I was a little less interested in how the book actually ended than I was with what happened to Eva.
Yeah, because the other big event involves David, a.k.a. Hijack, who apparently isn't going to be quite so cut out for the mysterious and unexplained, because this whole time he's held on to his cell phone, which anyone who watches any kind of, like, you know, action, adventure, chase kind of movie thing knows that anyone can track you down by your cell phone signal. So once they're outside of the safety of the secret Xavier school, who is able to almost immediately find them, even in a hyper pocket dimension piece of Montana? S.H.I.E.L.D. So S.H.I.E.L.D. shows up, and what was supposed to be just a training mission turns into, holy shit, if S.H.I.E.L.D. gets their hands on these kids, you know, the jig might be up for Cyclops and his renegade group of X-Men. So Magic has to pretty much just immediately teleport them away, after a brief little bit of a power fight kind of thing. And when they all get back, Cyclops basically says, David, you blew it. Even if you kind of won the fight against S.H.I.E.L.D., you still exposed your power to them, which they didn't know what it was before. You put your team in danger, you put the whole thing in danger, because you wouldn't follow one stupid little rule. Who do you think you're fucking with? You're out, and David is expelled.
Right, and I don't know how finite that is, because I really don't think that they would have brought him in and, like, kind of played with us with him, because he's only popped up in 2 or 3 issues, really, since this book's been going, so I don't think that they'd bring him in just to boot him like this. Not to mention, I know because of spoilers and stuff that I've seen online that this team is going to be going head-to-head with S.H.I.E.L.D. in the near future, so I'm pretty sure that this is some kind of strategical thing that Cyclops is playing around with, I hope, because I kind of liked Hijack.
Yeah, Cyclops does everything for a reason, but if you still want to nitpick this one a little bit, it still seems odd to just send this kid away, because then couldn't S.H.I.E.L.D. immediately just pick him right back up?
Yeah, and I mean, like, even though he doesn't know exactly where it is, he could tell them that, like, because they at least know that it's in the old Weapon X facility. So they obviously didn't mind wipe him because he was still saying, please don't send me home while they were dropping him off. So, I mean, he still remembers everything. I think that they figured because he messed up, they found a way to play it to their advantage. This is like some kind of a chess move. They're going to let him think that they've thrown him out, so in a roundabout way he could bring this situation to some kind of a head where it'll be advantageous for them. I mean, that's all I can think of at this point, like them letting him go in this style.
Right. Cyclops thinking a couple moves ahead, strategic, chess-like and stuff. I like it, man, I like it. So what do you think here? Thumbs up or thumbs down, and buy it or skip it?
I'll do thumbs up. This is another just amazing standalone issue where they're just bringing us to like these kids so much more, showing us a little bit more about them, while not explaining anything really too much about them so that they can keep us stringing along. I kind of like that Bendis is going with this almost Morning Glories-esque style with them since Battle of the Atoms happened, so that's kind of a really fun method like, to keep it convoluted. So buy it, dude. Like, Uncanny X-Men is a book that anybody that's an X-fan should be reading right now. It's just too awesome to miss.
Yeah, thumbs up, like I said. This is exactly what an X-Men comic should be. Young mutants learning their powers, encountering strange situations, on the run just because of who they are. Uncanny X-Men continues to tell an ongoing story, one satisfying issue at a time, which is why I'll say buy it. I mean, if it isn't already considered, it should be considered basically the flagship title of the X-Men franchise. Also this week we have X-Men number 11, where the X-Men have to do an awful lot of talking just to figure out their situation. And that's of course something that Brian Wood loves to do, banter, back and forth, especially between some female characters who don't necessarily all get along or agree with each other right away.
The complete catty, bitchy fighting between Rachel and M was very, I don't know, it kept me rolling. I like the, alright, trench coat. I lost a trench coat, yeah, and I eternally thank you for that, you know. Brian Wood can write women like nobody else. I mean, the only other person that can write girls this good is Kelly Sue DeConnick. I mean, Brian Wood has a knack.
Yeah, man, he's got this knack for, like, saying what the audience is thinking. Like, I know you brought up the trench coat thing not that long ago. I remember bringing up the fact that I could never look past John Sublime as a villain, and then they lampshaded that in the comics. They've always got that way of just kind of saying what you're thinking.
Right. I mean, like, and that was so funny. Quires just like, yeah, man, I think you're kind of cool. He's like, oh, you do you? Yeah, man, I'm kind of like into serial killers at the moment, you know? I was reading about Manson and Gacy and them, so yeah, you kind of fit that prototype. I'm just like, damn, dude, tell him how you think, Quentin, really. I mean, don't hold back. And John Sublime tried to be like, oh, yeah, that's cliche and stuff. It's like, no, dude, he pegged you, man. Don't be a bitch.
Yeah, and don't be jealous of his Bruce Stinks pin.
Right. Quire's a character, man.
Yeah, man, gotta love him. And I also like this conversation that they're having at the beginning. You know, they're trying to figure out, did they really just chase down a boat for no good reason? Like, what's happening? In some ways, it might make them seem a little incompetent, but I kind of like that, you know, everything is not just a foregone conclusion. Like, in some comics, like, you read this story and they just kind of, like, assume, okay, yeah, we figured this out right away, keep going with it. They actually kind of have to think it out a little bit.
There's Karima, who's a cop, who's, like, thinking about it like a cop, and she's thinking about it with her chasing down crime families experience, and she's seeing Anna Cortez as a gangster, and then you got Storm looking at it as we have fighting bad guys experience, so you got these different school of thoughts going on. So this argument about the boat and whether it's a red herring or whether it's actually a clue, I thought was very clever and was actually kind of playing to show you some of the characters' strengths and how maybe they might end up working together better in the future. Because, like you said, this team's not actually clicking together yet. We got a bunch of catty chicks that kind of all want to be the tough one and the right one.
Yeah, and thinking all this out also makes you kind of take a step back, and if you've been reading the book a little passively, like, they're not going to let you anymore. Because the conclusion that they come to at the end of this conversation, and, you know, they bring this right up for you, is that, okay, so don't just gloss this over. Deathstrike is back. Who brought her back, and why?
Right.
The whole thing here kind of connects to Necrosha a little bit, where X-Men villain Selene was destroyed. Now, somehow a powerful interest has stored some essence of her inside a special vault, and then the Sisterhood literally, like, just buy it off the black market. That's literally the idea. So you've got two stories here that are kind of related to death and resurrection, so maybe there'll be more of a connection. One thing I think is kind of interesting to note, though, or at least just, like, bears mentioning, this idea of resurrecting legendary X-Men villains to fight the X-Men, I get it, but I mean, they're dead for a reason, right?
I suppose, but I mean, the thing is they're looking for badass chicks to fight badass chicks, and, like, they're kind of left a little thin, and I don't think Wood just wants to run with the entire thing. Like, let's just create some people through Inhumanity to use. That's an alright thing in theory, but, you know, some people kind of want to see Selene and Madeline Pryor come back, and I'm one of them, and, like, if Wood can do it properly and do it, like, in some kind of way that causes badass chick fight, I want to see it, man. You know what I mean? So, it may not make the most sense, but I kind of like the way he portrayed the vault. It was actually just the essence of Selene in there. As it knew that it was coming back, it just overpowered them, and, like, it was almost like this sandstorm inside there of mutant power reforming. I mean, it was just very well drawn in, like, that simplistic style that this artist has, but mostly it was very well described by the characters that were inside there while it was happening.
Yeah, they do a good job of that. It almost kind of reminds me of when Gabriel Shepard was using his power an issue or two ago to destroy some of the leftover pieces of Archaea. They have a really good way of explaining really well what's going on. But I mean, just from the standpoint of, like, this being Archaea and Deathstrike's master plan, I mean, bringing back people the X-Men have already defeated.
Archaea she's the twin of a psychopathic mutant serial killer. You know, she's got the psychopathic thing. She thinks that she is unbeatable. She thinks that they sneak a slippery one past her the first time. So if she gets a team together and she powers them up with herself, that she could be unbeatable. It's hubris. It's the height of any good villain. So I mean, like, I'm for it. I think it's going to work. I think it's going to be a great little story that we're reading.
Another little thing to note is they remind us of Sublime's history with Shogo and how they kind of showed up in the beginning. Like, this kind of hint at that again and warn about something in the future for Shogo. You know, that's definitely, don't want to just throw that away.
Yeah, very foreboding, that little scene there in the hallway.
And Johnny, I know you wanted to talk about this one because the villains get an interesting look in this issue too. We have Typhoid confiding that she feels in a bit over her head. And she's like, look, I was just going to steal some shit from the X-Men. Now I'm, like, assaulting the entire world with, you know, aliens and shit. And Cortez takes a little bit of control of her body again that she is sharing with Deathstrike and admits, like, yeah, I was just kind of doing this for kicks. Like,
Yeah, I thought it was going to be fun to be a supervillain, and I thought, like, maybe I'd be able to hook up with Cyclops, Like, I thought that line was pretty funny, and I was just like, okay, like, I think you'd have more chance of a Wolverine with Deathstrike, but whatever, man. And then she was actually begging Typhoid Mary to kill her while she was still in charge of herself, which I found kind of sad and tragic for Ann Cortez, because at the beginning of this, she was just so down to become Deathstrike, and I don't know how much we've seen since has actually just been Deathstrike in charge of this poor girl. So, I mean, I kind of am feeling for the actual character Ann Cortez here.
Yeah, it's nice that they build them up a little bit. I mean, they don't make the whole issue about the villains, but they let the villains kind of be characters, Cortez, I mean, she's just a bored rich kid who trying to play some grown-up games, with her money and all that. And yeah, it's funny, she kind of mentions, like, ooh, I thought I could get a little close to Cyclops. Because, they also played that in Uncanny, too. They had, they were teasing the one girl about being hot for Cyclops.
Right, well, because I think it was the second or third issue that she was in with them, she straight up tells Emma Frost that that's one handsome man. So, I mean, like, in the past, Tempest has made it known that she likes Scott. So, I mean, that she's trying to play coy in this issue is kind of a little sad for the chick. And everyone's just like, no, dude, everybody knows that you want to shuck his corn cob, girl. Come on. There's a young one, too, so, like, you might even have, like, double chance now.
Everyone loves Cyclops. But yeah, poor Cortez, she just wants out. She wants out so bad, she even tries to goad Typhoid Mary into killing her. And it doesn't work, so she stabs herself with the sword. And that's kind of our cliffhanger for that part of it. I don't think a sword wound is going to stop Archaea from doing whatever she wants with her. So what they're still doing in this book is the double feature kind of thing. So you've got this story, and then you've got the other side where you've got the team fighting the Archaea-controlled Sentinels. Got Jubilee and Bling and like all these other, a lot of the Archies are in there. And of course, once again, they're using the Jean Grey School and Jean Grey School kids even better than the books that they're supposed to be stars of.
Right. This is like Wolverine and the X-Men done right. Like, this is another case of when a writer just hitting Jason Aaron over the head like, this is what you do with young X-Men. You do not have them go on Rocket Pack adventures. You have them fight superpowered Sentinels that are emerging from the goddamn ocean, pal.
Of course, I do have to kind of nitpick it again because they say that this is happening meanwhile.
But and Quentin Quire's there. I mean, is he with John Sublime or is he in the helicopter? Or is he fighting Sentinels? That was my little thing with it too. I was just like, oh man, you kind of stepped on it with that one.
They've got characters in both stories that are supposedly taking place at the same time. Writers were just not working well enough together on this one or something.
Maybe he thought that people would notice, like that issue of Battle of the Atom where they just drew all the Icemen the same, remember? It was overshadowed by some good humor. You got Helion in his trunks calling Jubilee Jubes, and she's like, don't call me Jubes, especially when you're in your undies. This is a swimming suit. No, man, we know what it is. Don't like it. I really like the way that the young X-Men are playing out in this, and I kind of really liked the way that this little segment ended.
What we get is Jubilee, still being an X-Men, but, using her vampire powers. Because, that's the thing, Jubilee's a vampire now. So when she's about to get crushed, she turns herself into, like, a vampire mist. Kind of like, like a smoke thing to, like, disappear and rematerialize somewhere else. But in the cliffhanger, we see that she can't pull herself back together.
That, and then Bling gets sucked underwater, and out of all the people that jump in and save her, Mercury goes and gets her, which I thought was kind of like, maybe going to actually end this dumb little feud over the two hot metal chicks being mad at the one being lesbian. So I really hope that they bring that to a head with this development.
So what do we think? Thumbs up or thumbs down, and buy it or skip it?
Thumbs up. I mean, for this weird little arc in the middle of an arc, I got to say that it's really hitting the nail on the head and taking this to new heights. And, buy this, man. This is a good X-Team book about a team that's actually forming, you know what I mean? Not a team that actually works together yet. So that's always kind of fun to read about. And you get to see the young X-Men actually doing X-Men things. So, yeah, dude, just completely check this out if you get a chance.
I'm going to go thumbs up, too. I think this series has had to deal with a lot. Like, first, Brian Wood, came out and said, look, I'm doing an all-female book. But Marvel kind of wanted to market it as it just happened to be females. It's like, that was a little weird. And then, it only gets a couple issues in, and all of a sudden it becomes Battle of the Atom. So it has to kind of, stop its own storyline and then start again from a full stop. And then now it's got arc within an arc for the number one point now gimmick. But regardless of all that, it's built up a lot of momentum again. And despite my little plot nitpicks, it's still using the Jean Grey school way better than any other series right now. And I'll also say buy it. I mean, even the villains get a fair shake in this issue, with enough time to be developed as characters, without making the whole thing about just the bad guys. Okay, so also up this week is Amazing X-Men number 4. So apparently Wolverine lets go of the pirate ship and then falls straight down to hell.
Is that supposed to be hell? I mean, I didn't know. I thought it was just like, if you fall out of heaven, there's this like never-ending ice cap underneath it. I guess that's where it helps formulate the clouds, because it seemed like the other people were in hell, where they were fighting, where Iceman was being melted and Firestar ends up saving the day, like we're about to get to. So I'm not sure if that was supposed to be hell, or what the hell's even actually going on in this book right now.
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to think maybe like that was part of the frozen part, like either because Iceman had frozen it, or because like it's the part of hell that's like ironically cold. I mean, I couldn't imagine there being a part of heaven where you nearly freeze to death and suffer.
Eskimo heaven.
Like, why are Wolverine and Northstar freezing to death and nearly dying in heaven? Like, why would there be that part of heaven? Why would you put that there, God?
Right. Well, I mean, like, why would you let it be able for mutant pirates to, float their ships on in? This whole thing is just written horribly, you know what I mean? It's set to fail, in my opinion.
Yeah, so while whatever that is going on, Firestar was trying to defend Iceman, who's knocked out and exhausted, and momentarily thinks to herself that maybe she should just mercy kill him if she can't beat the villains. I mean, at least she immediately realizes that's a terrible idea, but is this just like the stupidest comic ever?
Right, and I mean, like, her idea and what actually comes out of it is probably one of the silliest things I've ever heard of. I'm going to burn hell down.
Yeah, I don't even get it. Like, she's, like, proud of herself for reigniting after Iceman just went out of his way to freeze it.
Right. It's just, I'm like, Jason Aaron, what is even going on here? Do you even know? I mean, are you just, like, doing all kinds of Grant Morrison drugs while you're writing this, or what?
Yeah, but, like, the bad ones that he left over and didn't finish.
Right, because they left him feeling too stupid, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, like, they sat in his kitchen cupboard getting moldy for, like, a decade or so, and then Jason Aaron was like, oh, I bet they're still good.
Yeah, dude, Grant Morrison sold me some dope. I'm going to take it. It's like, yeah. That's a good idea.
Aye. So, meanwhile, Beast is in feral mode attacking Nightcrawler. So I guess that was Nightcrawler's memory of them having bets over going to church versus doing laundry?
Yeah, it was Nightcrawler's little, remembering that, like, yeah, they wouldn't go to the bar with, like, the normal mutants. The normal mutants thought it was because they were scared of being blue, but no, like, they actually had fun playing chess with each other, and, like, he was trying to use that to, placate Henry, but Henry is still trying to bite him, and then, yeah, Storm pulls the sword out of his back, and then all of a sudden he's just like, ew, and it's just like, okay. I guess it was supposed to be like a Morgul blade from Lord of the Rings. I'm not sure about that. I guess time will tell with this, but yeah, it's like a total sword in the stone moment. They pull the sword out of his back, and he's just like, ooh, hey, Kurt, how are you doing? My stars and garters, It's just like, what? What? It was just another thing in this book where I'm just like, okay, it's drawn nice, but what the fuck is going on?
So just for the sake of keeping everyone up to date on what happens, and you guys are going to love this. So the Bamfs show up and save Firestar and Iceman anyway, and we get the origin of the Bamfs.
Mm-hmm.
So apparently these mini Nightcrawlers are actually hell maggots, basically, that were fed by the blood of Azazel, that then grew up to resemble Nightcrawler-type people, but they were red because of the blood, until Nightcrawler makes them a promise, and that promise turns them blue.
And good, and all of a sudden they're able to make stargates out of coffee pots and whiskey. Yeah, it's the most likely of scenarios all the way around.
Yeah, so all this had to happen for Nightcrawler to send these little guys to the X-Men in the living world to build the portal, to draw them here, which puts them in the danger that he now just had to save them from.
It makes so much sense when you say it like that. Oh, dude, yeah. I mean, like, when I was reading, I'm just like, is this supposed to explain something? I mean, what is he? And now you guys are here facing my danger. It's like, I'm like, yeah, dude, you're the one that, like, had them build the Stargate and come at this time when you decided to. Dude, I don't even know what's going on. And like I said, I kind of don't want to. Like, if I figured it out, I think I might get some kind of brain blister that will make me think that this is a good comic or something. You know, I'm actually terrified of something like that happening.
Well, the part where you decide it's a good comic, I wouldn't worry too hard about that. Because what they kind of leave for part of the cliffhanger is they don't explain what Nightcrawler was going to give to the Bamfs that apparently is able to turn them blue. But I'm just waiting for the moment to hear that what turns the red evil Bamfs blue is hope.
Yeah. Love. Yeah, dude. I whatever cheesy little thing that's 80s thing is going to pop up with it, it's just going to, like, really make you roll your eyes and just be like, really, Jason Aaron? You can't get fired soon enough, pal. And you forgot my favorite part, like the whole tragic trudging through the snow with North Star and Wolverine and just like, don't fall, Logan. You know, like, as long as you don't fall, we'll make it out and stuff. And Wolverine falls down, and then you think that, like, he's going to die in the snowfields under heaven that make no sense. And then, poof, Nightcrawler shows up and, oh, my friend, we are going to go fight pirates together and drink whiskey. And Wolverine's like, you promise? And he's like, I don't have whiskey, but they're pirates. And you're just like, okay, dude, could this get any more silly and just retarded? You know, and especially with some of the really hard-hitting, really awesome things that are going on in the X-books right now. I mean, like, who actually thought that this is a book that needed to come out? Honestly, dude, I mean, you're actually making A plus X look good right now.
And that was pretty much our cliffhanger, too. Like, as you explained it, you know, they're trudging through the snow. They come in and rescue them. Nightcrawler promises them they're going to go fight pirates. And then they all revamp themselves up and get on the boat that they took over. And they're going to go fly to take on Azazel and bring the fight to him. And that's like your cliffhanger for the book.
Yeah, it's like Muppets Peter Pan, but with X-Men instead of Muppets. I mean, I don't even know what the hell I'm reading with this thing.
And the only last thing I kind of wonder, just out of curiosity, is they have another flashback scene where Wolverine's talking to Nightcrawler and references how he expects to die with a, what was the quote? A belly full of whiskey, a head full of arrows, and surrounded by dead ninjas or something like that. I just kind of wonder if that was shoved in there, like if they're going to plan on killing Wolverine at the end of his current series, since he's killable, and if that's going to be a reference to like how it happens.
I don't know, but if any two retards in this genre are working together, it's definitely going to be Cornell and Aaron. So, I mean, like, it might be, dude.
So, thumbs up or thumbs down, and buy it or skip it.
Dude, thumbs down. If there was anything that made any sense about this book at any time, it's completely lost track of any of that. I mean, I had no idea where they were supposed to be in, like, any kind of etherical realm at all in this issue at any time, except for when they actually were in hell at the beginning of it. And skip it. This is not good. It's drawn exquisitely, but that's not an excuse to, like, actually buy and read this crap.
Thumbs down. This is one of the dumbest, most convoluted X-Men stories I've ever had the displeasure to read. And I'm going to go with skip it. Even visually, I think this issue took a little bit of a downturn, so I'm left with no reason to recommend it. So let's just move on to Savage Wolverine number 15. So when last we left off, Wolverine had befriended this family back in like the 1930s, and when the father is murdered, Wolverine has to take it upon himself to avenge his death and protect the kids. Savage Wolverine number 15 starts with a flashback to the villains, and we see how they kind of came together and grew up.
And was that not just very interesting and very articulately done? The way they kind of showed, one was kind of upscale and the other one was kind of low rent. They were both migrating to America on a ship, and they ended up mutually finding each other for their psychopathic needs. And I don't know, I just thought that, like, it came about very well. This guy obviously has a good idea with how he wants to take this story and just make this really gruesome depression tale about immigrants and people trying to find their place in a country that's, you know, still forming itself. I think that this is actually going superbly, personally.
Yeah, I'm not going to go as far as to say that I felt sympathetic for the bad guys, but you can kind of see their plight. You know, they've got their bullies and their abusive parents, and these kids that kind of like conspire and, you know, put their, you know, separate minds and abilities together to basically kill everyone. Kill everyone who's bullying them, kill their abusive dad, and consolidate power, kind of in a way, through doing these things, which was a lot of fun to read.
Right, and I mean, like, very well put together artistically, too. The visual style of these two issues has just been Like I said, it's like evil Norman Rockwell. Like, I really dig the look of it.
It's still great style, like really suited for the kind of era and the kind of story that they're putting together. And then when we flash back forward to what's going on currently, see the villains who, we had worried that after they kidnapped the daughter, they were going to put her into like a sex slave trade kind of thing in their bordello sex house or whatever. But it's actually even a little more twisted than that. They put her in a situation where they're standing behind her with a knife to her throat, and they've got her holding like a piano wire weapon thing to this guy's neck, like this guy who crossed them, and they force this girl, they're like, kill this guy or we're going to kill you.
Yeah, they make her garrote his head off, which is, like, very gruesomely done.
Yeah, like, they are playing some really sick and twisted games. It's great. It's way beyond just, like, anything that I expected was going to happen in it.
Right. I mean, I thought that, like you said, it was just going to be cheesy mobsters selling her off to, like, some kind of horny old fat dude, to be a sex slave. Something cheesy like that, but this was way more extreme and way more fucked up than, like, like sex slave and stuff like that. It's spooky and everything, but it's been done to death, and this was something that, I did not see coming.
Yeah, man, I loved it. So then Wolverine shows up, bone claws covered in blood, saves the day, and, as he fights the bad guys, there are some great blood splatter effects whenever Wolverine's cutting people up.
Well, right, because the big German guy gets a drop on him, and he's kind of got him in a headlock, and the other guy's got the sister. The brother comes in with the gun and shoots the one guy, and the sister's able to get away, and Wolverine puts his claws right through the German guy's face and kind of, like, gouges out around his eye. Dude, like, that panel is just so exquisitely, brutally painted. I mean, it's just great.
They end up in this transient camp, and they're just kind of trying to hide out, and they even befriend some of the local people who are all kind of like, homeless and living there and huddled and stuff, and Wolverine shares some food from the hunt with them. But then they're betrayed when other people expose where they are to the cops because they want a bounty on Wolverine.
Yeah, dirty cop gets a hold of Wolverine, and that's kind of our cliffhanger. They're taking him downtown, and the one kid is forced to go back to camp. Was he even able to get the medicine for the sister with the cough? So yeah, this kind of leaves everybody in dire straits at the end of this. This is a proper cliffhanger and just probably one of the more gritty Wolverine tales that I've read recently.
Yeah, man, so I'm really glad that it's not over. I was kind of expecting just another two-shot, but no, we're going to get some more of this one. So, thumbs up or thumbs down, and buy it or skip it.
Thumbs up. This one I thought that, like, I had this planned and, like, it was going to be kind of a stereotypical depression mobster story. It really just showed me that, like, this guy is playing with a completely different deck than most other people, and buy it, dude. The art is amazing, and this is a Wolverine story that should be read right now.
Yeah, man, thumbs up here, too. They even surprised me a little bit, which is always awesome. And I'm going to go with buy it. Because once again, really, there's just not a lot of other good Wolverine shit out there right now, so if you're not reading this one, and you're a Wolverine fan, then I don't know what the hell comics you're reading. Okay, so next up is Night of the Living Deadpool number 3. I mean, this whole gimmick, I think it's definitely more suited to a one-shot read. Like, whether it could have just been, like, a one-issue, like, big issue thing, or maybe if it's, like, a trade waiter. But here in issue 3, we meet an AIM scientist, supposedly part of the group that brought on this zombie plague. Well, they were doing biological experiments with regeneration, got out of hand. They build up the story a bit here, and we see that, the experiments, the whole thing that caused the zombie thing, it was brought on from Deadpool's blood. So it sends Deadpool on a bit of a guilt trip, and we see that also Deadpool has been bitten. And the bite kind of heals, but then goes back, then heals, but then, like, opens again. He becomes a zombie for a little while, kills a bunch of his new friends, but then shakes it off. So he's like half zombie, but then not zombie or something?
Everything that's going to make any sense they're going to pour on us in the last issue, which is a writing thing that I really hate, and like I was happy that people were getting away from. But like you said, this is a book that probably should have just been a 48-page annual or something like that.
And the thing about Deadpool being a zombie, but not being a zombie, but being a zombie, I mean, they're kind of like playing fast and loose with traditional, zombie rules anyway, by having zombies that can still talk for a little bit. So it's not like they've got really like an established set that they have to play by, so they can kind of just like have whatever happen.
Well, it just seems like they're really just playing off of people like Deadpool, people like zombies. Let's do a Deadpool zombie comic. And it's just kind of what you would expect from that idea. Like, I'm a little disappointed by Colin Bunn writing this because it's the only thing that I've ever read of his. It's like completely mediocre. I'm still not going to take it out on him. Like, you got to do what you're told by the editors. So he's just a working man.
Yeah, but we need him to be on fire. He needs good momentum going into Magneto.
Oh, dude, Magneto's going to be on fire, dude. There's no way he's going to drop the ball on that and write something mediocre. No way.
So, yeah, I don't know. That's all I've really got on Deadpool.
Yeah, me too.
So, thumbs up or thumbs down, and buy it or skip it.
I go ahead and just give this a thumbs down. Like, it just was something that I kind of had to trudge through, and I didn't completely enjoy it all. There was a couple things I somewhat smirked at, but I don't hate it. And maybe get this in the trade paperback depending on how it ends. But like I said, it's very mediocre. It's very playing to cliches and the fact that people are into Deadpool at the moment. So it's nothing special.
I'm going to go thumbs up. I don't think it was a bad read. I like the way Deadpool talks, using words like, don't make me do something decapitory, and the illustrations where he holds out his swords with open arms. If anything, I'll give it a thumbs up because it mentions one of those things that I always wonder in every zombie tale. If only newly dead people come back to life, or if they could be rising up previously from graves. Even just hanging a lantern on that kind of amuses me. But I'm going to go with skip it. At best, maybe get the trade. Or if you just read what I thought was the pretty entertaining first issue, you get the idea. Next up is A+X number 17. I honestly didn't hate the Iron Man brew thing.
No, it was surprisingly very fun and played to the strengths of both the characters and very kiddie, but it was, like I said, it was kind of a little kick in the pants, It was a lot better than the cover made it look like it was going to be.
You see the basic setup here. It's Tony had apparently agreed to let Brew do a job shadow thing. So Beast drops him off, and Stark does everything and anything to avoid him. Until Brew kind of forces his way in, and they save the day together. That's where the segue thing kind of comes from. Tony Stark had run off to fight some villain. Any villain just didn't want to deal with Brew, and Brew kind of built a little flying device just to catch up with him. That's all there was out of that. And then after saving the day together, and Brew kind of saves Tony from getting embarrassed, they kind of start to bond for a couple pages. I don't know. I kind of liked how they made fun of Thor. Maybe that's why I liked it. And the way he talks.
And what's he talking about? Oh, man, it's never... You always just play this stuff close to the vest. You just hit what Thor hits, and you'll be safe.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what Thor's talking about either. Just punch what he's punching, and you'll be fine. Yeah. So maybe that's why I liked it. I don't know. I like the speech at the end, too, where they're having lunch together, and Tony's just kind of loving with Brew. He's like, hey, so what if they call you a nerd? Being a nerd is good. I'm a nerd, the Hulk's a nerd, Spider-Man's a nerd. We build things and save the world.
It was inspirational, and like I said, it was something that it would be totally cool to let a kid read, and it almost made me feel like a kid reading it. So it was probably one of the better A+X little minis that I've read so far since we've been forced to read this series.
And this is definitely a case where being a little mini works in its favor. It's punchy, it's quick, and you can enjoy it and have it over with before the gimmick wears thin. Just a couple pages, a couple laughs, and you're good to go. The Doom thing was a little funny too, I guess. We see that Doom arrived on scene to the second part of the book, the Cyclops and Captain America crossover, which now involves a shit ton of Avengers and X-Men. But anyway, they knock him right out, and the telepathic mutant Skrull tries to put in a mental suggestion, a memory of Doom actually winning the fight. But you can tell as the reader right off the bat that it's all wrong. Colossus and Nightcrawler are there.
Yeah, it's straight up 80s X-Men, Storm's got the black outfit with the the cape thing, and yeah, everybody's in the wrong gear basically.
And even Dr. Doom eventually catches on that he's being mentally manipulated too.
Yeah, when he picks up Thor's hammer, that's when I was just about to get pissed. I'm like, Captain America's the only other person in the 616 that can lift that, and then all of a sudden Doom and dawns on him, and I can't do this shit either, man. Well, what's going on here?
Doom, of course, eventually, gets his control again, and he can, well, actually, I guess what happened was that his suit was being, taken over technologically, so he transports his body out of his suit, but, in the meantime, while all this was going on, Latveria was getting smashed to bits. His base, his castle was getting all smashed up by the Avengers and X-Men, because he was doing the experiments, and they want to fuck up all his technology and, not let him get this power. But then, in our cliffhanger for it, I guess, S.H.I.E.L.D. shows up, and they want to attack the Skrulls, even though they were helping.
Man, they're just doing anything that they can to get 6 issues out of this retardation, aren't they?
yeah, man, that's pretty much what I was thinking too. It's kind of a shame because I mean, even though the Sight Cat team-up began with stupid, goofy aprons and crap like that, like, at least it was the almost halfway serious one that I was really enjoying for maybe 2 or 3 issues worth. So it's kind of a shame to do that to it, but at least, once again, like, the whole thing just felt like it was over mercifully quick. I mean, this whole issue, even with the time that I took to, you know, scan images from it and take my notes on it, I was done in, like, minutes.
Right, it wasn't as painful to read as, like, the Unamazing X-Men or even Night of the Living Deadpool. I actually breezed through it and had a lot of fun until, I pretty much got to the last page and I'm just like, man, really? They need to get one more issue out of this? I mean, like, wasn't the thing with Doom a nice wrap-up? I thought it was.
One more brownie point I'll give it is they mentioned another one of those things that I've always been thinking during the fake Doom fight when he tears up Wolverine. There's this line about, you know, adamantium bones don't protect between vertebrae. Like, he wouldn't have adamantium cartilage or, you know, whatever goes between, like, your neck bones and shit like that. So you wouldn't technically be impossible to decapitate if you were really, really quick about it. And I don't know, it's just one of those things that I always kind of thought about. I'm like, yeah, so I mean, you know, he mentioned one of them little things that kind of makes me happy, but, I don't know. Thumbs up or thumbs down and buy it or skip it.
I'm actually going to give this a thumbs up just because of how charming I found the Brood Tony Stark story, because of how lame I was thinking it was going to be. And for the most part, the Cap and Cyclops thing, even though it's had fuck all to do about Cap and Cyclops anymore, was almost very entertaining until the end. So, yeah, this gets a mild thumbs up, but skip it. You know, there's nothing too awesome going on. I mean, like, the Brew Iron Man thing would be cool to catch if you got a kid, you know what I mean? Like, go ahead and let him read it, but don't go out of your way to get this.
Yeah, I'm going to go thumbs up, too. As far as this book goes, it was okay for A+X. And like you mentioned, Johnny, it was better than Amazing X-Men. But I'll also go skip it. I mean, this is a $3.99 comic, and all you get is a couple laughs for $4. If it was like a $2 or $3 comic, I might say go for it, but no. Okay, on to the previews. So Avengers Assemble 24 pairs up Spider-Girl with Iron Man. I guess Wolverine's part of the story is done, but I might just double-check that for you.
Yeah, that'll be fun, just because I liked the last issue, and you know, Wolverine might still be in it a little bit just to cap off his part of it and pass the torch to Iron Man. So, you know, there might be, like, a little more Wolverine in this issue to read.
And we'll also check up on the Cataclysm Ultimates event series coming to an end. I mean, we might as well just see how much the X-Men are still involved in that.
I want to see how hot a giant kitty looks in her white latex outfit, so yeah, I'm definitely going to read it.
Yeah, so we'll give those a look, but the main event books start with Wolverine number 2, which guest stars the Superior Spider-Man.
I love the 90s. It's going to be back, dude, right on.
I mean, geez, the relaunch isn't even on its feet, and they're already cramming in more heroes, though?
They're cramming the most hated hero ever in it, so, like, yeah, way to go. And, like, I mean, honestly, like, we usually say the Doc Ock Spidey's written very good in everybody else's book, but I think he's probably going to be written about as bad as Dan Slott writes him by old Carnell. I mean, Carnell can't write Wolverine right, so he's definitely not going to be able to write Spider-Man right, and especially not Doc Ock Spider-Man. So, you know, expect a stinker with this one.
Yeah, man, that kind of takes the wind out of my sails as far as what sounds like it could be a cool team-up. You know, villain Wolverine and villain in a hero's body trying to be a hero Spider-Man, but whatever. Anyway, we also get Wolverine in the X-Men number 42, which we can celebrate being the quote-unquote final issue before the renumbering.
What, are they going to, like, fire Kid Gladiator now or something? Like, but that last issue, that was just so lame and just didn't do anything. That was supposed to, like, be the lead-up to a wrap-up issue. And, honestly, who gives a shit about the little kid Hellfire Club? If they're going to bring the Runaways back, fine, let them fight him. But, dude, read Uncanny X-Men, see that you can do things with young, unexperienced X-Men that could be fun and exciting without having them actually fight villains. I mean, come on. Grow some balls, Jason Aaron. You used to write Scalped. That's all I gotta ever say, man. You used to write Scalped. I think that Jason Aaron is like being like, okay, somebody's gonna take over my book. Okay, I'm gonna ruin it the way that mine was ruined. They gotta carry on with these crappy villains, at least for the first arc. And I think that, like, the young Hellfire Club are gonna carry over into the next incarnation of this stupidity. That's just my prediction.
It would kind of figure, though, because even the new series or the renumbered series coming up is going to be kind of, I don't know, like, tainted in my eyes because they're going to be using the stupid killable Wolverine in it. So it's not going to be like just normal Wolverine leading his own team of X-Men. I mean, I'm never going to get the kind of Wolverine-led X-Team book that I want, am I?
they're never going to use, like, X-Men that'll be interesting. Like, Brian Wood's pulling out Helion, he's pulling out Mercury and Pixie. People that are awesome heroes that live at the Jean Grey School. But Jason Aaron's never touched them, never uses them. They're drawn in the background every now and then, while Quentin Quire's hitting on Idy, or Brew is, like, fumbling and dropping something on Kid Gladiator. You know what I mean? He's so obsessed with doing this Saved by the Bell teeny bopper garbage that he's forgotten that, like, dude, this is supposed to be a superhero team book.
Well, that doesn't make me feel much better, but one way or another, it's Jason Aaron on one less X-Men book, so. And we're not done with Wolverine yet. How about Origin 2 number 3, where we find out that Mr. Sinister is really the one behind all that Wolverine and Cyclops / fiction out there.
He does seem like the type. He's got that little creepy mustache, man. And, like, I can see him just like, oh yeah, he gets on Slim, and it's like, oh, it's like MMA. He's got him in the rear neck and chokehold. It's so hot. Yeah, dude. Like, anybody who's got the name Essex, you know, he's creepy. And he's into / fiction.
He looks like the type, and he's had, like, this lifelong fascination with everything Cyclops and everything Summers, and now we're seeing that it goes back to the past, too, because apparently Mr. Sinister is involved in Wolverine's origin. Like, he's the one. He loves those two. He wants them together. It's all Mr. Sinister.
You think, like, he's going to have a job at the circus, too? You think, like, Sinister's, like, I don't know, like, in charge of the elephants or something going on at the Wolverine circus show, the greatest show on Earth we're going to be reading about in this issue?
Or maybe the Lion Tamer? Like, Mr. Sinister seems like the type to carry a whip.
Yeah, he had that little red robe on and stuff, and the mustache. He does look like a Lion Tamer. I can see him with a chair and a whip, you know, and that fits his / fiction motif, the whip, so.
Yeah. And that's all I really have to say about that.
Yeah.
Fuck the story.
Fuck that comic. Yeah, there's going to be so many thumbs down and skip it next time. It'll be funny, kids.
We're also going to get Uncanny Avengers number 17. It's the last issue of this arc, I guess. But, I mean, we all know it's going to bleed heavily into the next one anyway. I mean, I'm not saying I expect Uncanny Avengers number 17 to be bad, but it's a little hard for me to get excited about.
Right. I mean, like, he's writing this grandiose tale. I think that, like, in some way, this event with the Executioner is going to wrap up, but I've seen covers for the upcoming issues, and, like, yeah, you see May, Parker, Venom, and Doom 2099 appearing, so what Kang's pulling out and things that have transpired in this arc are going to be going on in the near future. So, like, not over, not by a long stretch. So, you know, get your cleats on, kids. You're gonna you still need to do some running.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's not like it's a bad thing to have stories that build off of each other. I mean, they should, but it feels like nothing wraps up in this. Like we say, you know, sometimes for certain books you should, like, get the trade, but this is going to be like, just get the series.
Yeah, dude, because it's the song that never ends. It goes on and on, my friend. It's like really kind of how I see this series, because the first 5 issues, yeah, dude, it really set it up, and you had the goofy thing with the Red Skull with Professor X's brain. But then, as soon as, like, 6 started, and you got, like, into this idealism with externals and stuff like that, yeah, man, it's just been weaving, and we're almost 20 issues in, and, like, it's all been, like, one story so far. So, I mean, like, he has this grand plan, but, yeah, like you said, we might have to just say, get the omnibus at one point, instead of, like, even just get the trade.
Oh, yeah, that reminds me. Speaking of Brian Wood speaking to us, as us, or whatever, there was also that line in X-Men where one of the characters says, I just want Rogue back.
Yeah, dude. Rachel said that because M was giving her shit again.
So, yeah, hopefully we can get to the part in Uncanny Avengers where Rogue comes back.
Right. It's like, Rogue is just too badass. I wish that Ravinder Whitten Ryder is such a cruel bitch in this series, but I'll take Rogue any way I can get her. My second favorite X-Men, so.
And finishing off the previews is Deadpool number 24, where Deadpool vs. S.H.I.E.L.D. continues. Everything seemed hunky-dory at the end of Deadpool number 23, but it's not all over that easy.
Alright, well, bring it on. I'm having fun with this. I really like the Agent Preston in his head, and the series doesn't let me down, though, so whatever.
Alright, so let's start doing some of the end-of-the-show segments. Why don't we start by spiking the punch?
Yeah, man, spike it up.
Oh, yeah!
Spiking the Punch is a segment for Johnny and I to each bring up one non-X-Men related comic. Johnny, do you want to lead us off?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to my normal roots to Image Comics, and I'm going to spike with Undertow number 1. Following in the tradition of Image has been doing lately with just really awesome, very obscure science fiction stories. This one happens to be about a rebellion in Atlantis, which kind of starts off in a weird kind of convoluted way, but you kind of get what it's about towards the middle of the issue. This kid, he's kind of like, he's from an up-and-coming family, kind of a high political family in Atlantis, and everything's always been decided for him. He's about to have an arranged marriage and everything, so he decides to say screw his parents, and he joins the army. He's in this war against these rebels. Basically, everybody gets obliterated except for him, and the rebel leader asks him if he wants to come along, and he actually becomes the most down guy for the cause. These guys have left Atlantis, and they're cruising around the upper world. Humans are still kind of like, you know, the missing link type people. We're apes, just like grunt and like kill anything. They like to observe us, and they see that like we are akin to them, but they don't actually want to mess with us either. And basically where we end up with this is they're looking for a way that they can actually breathe air so they don't have to be reliant on water in their ship. So they're trying to chase down this amphibian where they can try to splice or genetically manipulate themselves to where they can be less reliant on breathing water, which I find completely fascinating. I think that this is a great idea for a comic, and I really love the art style. I like the way that the ichthyosapiens are drawn, and I don't know, I like rebellion stories, especially like this, and you know, Image is just on fire right now.
Yeah, man, there's a lot to like about this. For example, there's so many stories about Atlantis still lives, but I feel like not as many that take place during human prehistory, where Atlantis was, you know, supposedly thriving, as far as, like, you know, the myth and all that goes. I had a couple nitpicks. The art at points left me with a little trouble trying to figure out exactly what was going on.
Especially at the beginning, right, with the battle?
Yeah, especially with the battle. I mean, I could tell there was blood and carnage, but it took me a couple pages to understand which character was which and who was stabbing who and what the fuck the crows were doing.
Right. But like I said, like towards like the middle of the issue, you really kind of understand the gist of it and what's going on. And everything, it really ended strong, and it's really kind of looks like this is going to be a great little series to keep your eye on.
Oh yeah, and you shouldn't be expected to have to know exactly the full story within reading the first page of a comic book. The white letters over the light coloring, over the white colors, were a little hard to read at times. At some points, like, I missed that there was text, and like I had to go back and look again.
There are a few things that could have been a bit better on this book, but I don't know, all the things that were great about it kind of overpowered any of that, in my opinion.
Yeah, man, like I said, this is hardly the first book about Atlantis, but it's surely more than just the gimmick. Like you said, there's this very complex political system, presenting Atlantis as kind of a stale civilization run by a high dictatorship, posing as a democracy. You know, sound familiar?
Right. They're definitely making some bones with how they feel about the political system with this, while also playing a fantastic element with it, which like I always kind of find fun.
Yeah, man, I love it, man. You know, keep the majority fat and the rest quiet. And like you said, it's very sci-fi with the technology, which it almost kind of has to be for this to work, I think, or at least the way they want it to. I mean, either way, I love it, but like, the ship is on water, or it's on land, or it's on air. Like, part of me is not 100% sure exactly, like, just what the rules of this universe are and what this shit can do. But I mean, it is only the first issue.
Right, and I mean, anybody that's keen on the Atlantis myth knows that they're like highly evolved type people, and yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be surprising that like their ships could come out of the water and maybe float on air.
Yeah, I don't know if it's really going to be about those things, or like they're just kind of, you know, part of the landscape and part of like the world building and how this shit works. But I mean, also, like you said, it does get kind of mythical, in a sense. Like, you know, as water breathers, they're aware of primitive humans who are air breathers, but like their big supernatural mystery, you know, the mystery of the Atlanteans, they kind of like, you know, talk about what if there was an amphibian that could live in either water or air or breathe in both environments. And that's kind of like what they're chasing down. That's what this new society is doing.
Right, that's basically the focus of these people that left Atlantis, and that's where we leave this issue. They think they're chasing one such thing, and they're kind of in a layer of some sort, which is, it's kind of left you kind of with a foreboding feeling that, you know, maybe this ain't going to work out too good for these guys in the next issue.
Oh, yeah, and the giant spider-looking amphibian creature behind the main character was kind of a clue that there could be some trouble coming up.
Pow pow. Yeah, it's not like it was vaguely hinted that there was going to be bad things happening to these folks, but yeah, like I said, foreboding.
So yeah, I mean, no pun intended, you gotta give the issue a little breathing room.
Right, the good one.
But I mean, as you're getting into it, you realize that it's going to be far more interesting than even just the basic premise or the gimmick of it, and I think there's a good shot here.
If you like Atlantis and you like fun little sci-fi things in the vein of Rick Remender's Black Science, then definitely read this.
Yeah, man, and thanks for bringing this one up. I remember seeing it, the cover didn't really grab me, so I totally would have skipped it, but now I didn't. This week I'm spiking the punch with Supergirl number 28. Because, well, I just thought it was kind of interesting. We don't get to talk about some of these issues a lot, and I don't, read very heavily of DC, but I still kind of wonder what's going on there sometimes. Just because I grew up with a lot of those characters. So every once in a while I'll pick up a book like Green Arrow from previously, or Supergirl number 28. Now what we've got going on here, as far as interesting points, is that currently in DC there are 2 Lobos. Now this one was interesting to me because I remember there was a big controversy about some kind of metrosexual looking Lobo, like ruining the DC universe. So I guess what they've got going on is, there's one version of Lobo that showed up, I think, in Deathstroke earlier in the New 52. That looks a little more like the big Cro-Magnon kind of cigar chomping logo that cigar.
The biker tweaker looking guy.
Yeah, like there's that one that you might be like a little more used to, like what you might think of as Lobo. And there's also this kind of like sleeker, like refined.
I thought he looked like Mark Dacascos. He looked like Mark Dacascos to me. I was just like, wow, dude, Lobo looks like Mark Dacascos. I wonder if they're gonna get him to play him like on a TV show or something. That'd be good casting.
Younger looking, sleeker Lobo, elegant assassin logo, is kind of trying to hunt down the bigger one because he thinks he stole his identity. Throughout all this, it's made Lobo one of Supergirl's main antagonists. Like, she's tangled with this guy a lot, I guess. And that's where the issue starts, with the 2 of them, basically, fighting out for whatever misunderstanding reason. I'll admit, it was kind of an annoying read at first, because I didn't know who was narrating. I guess Lobo's actually narrating first. And you can tell once you get a few pages into it that whenever Supergirl narrates, there's like a big yellow and red thing going on with her dialogue box and an S. But I kind of had to start over, because I didn't know it was Lobo talking at first. So yeah, I was curious about what the whole Lobo situation is. And this Supergirl that they've got going on in the New 52 is kind of like an angry girl. Like, it almost kind of reminds me of, the current Jean Grey in X-Men comics, where this girl has had way too much put on her too quickly.
Well, yeah, that's the thing that they're kind of doing with all the supers at DC. They're kind of like cranky, pissy versions of their former selves. I guess that's what they consider calling good role reversal for these heroes.
Yeah, that's one of the main points that I bring it up, is that everything in DC has gone villainous. And I don't just mean that they're doing forever evil right now, even though that is the most the most obvious symptom, that the main heroes are in the background, where we've got alternate heroes invading Earth and the bad guys have to stop. Yeah, all that madness. I don't care as much about that, but even Superman is this more brash version of Superman, like he was when he was originally introduced, versus the big blue constable that people are used to. I guess Lex Luthor is going to become a Justice Leaguer now. You've got a DC universe filled with so many heroes who live in more of a gray area. I always thought of DC as being more the fantasy land, good guys versus bad guys,
yeah, black and white.
Yeah, where Marvel was a little more just down to earth, where it was just people. But it seems like it's kind of flipped now. Marvel villains are these giant galactic threats, and then the heroes are these perfectly typical goody-goody heroes, like the new Miss Marvel.
Well, she's a rare case. She's one of the few. My bad. I didn't see any of the awesomeness that you saw in this issue. I saw the reason why I don't usually read DC Comics, just dancing in front of my face the entire time. They draw Supergirl very cute in this, don't get me wrong, but that's about all you got going in this issue, in my opinion.
Did I say it was awesome?
I figured we spiked the punch with shit because we thought it was cool. It was the awesomest thing we read, aside from an X-Men book. My bad. I just assumed.
No, I said it was interesting, and I thought there were things we were talking about in it, as far as what's going on in the comic book universe. And yeah, usually we, recommend a comic that we thought was really good for Spike the Punch. But like you said, it was kind of slim pickings. So yeah, I went with Supergirl because I just thought it was kind of interesting what's going on in this universe. So I didn't think it was particularly awesome or great or anything, but
Well, they're really playing up the fact that she's kind of red kryptonited out in it, and she's going to become part of the Red Lantern Corps, which is wow, that's so awesome that they got to try to work everybody into the fucking Lantern Corps nowadays, because that's just what people are into, which I'll never understand, but whatever. I like Supergirl because she floats around in her hot little outfit, you know what I mean, and kicks ass. I really don't like the way the Lantern Corps people look, so I didn't like the way she looked at the end of this book. But that's just me personally, man. I ain't got no love for the Lanterns.
what they're kind of doing with Supergirl in the New 52. From the very beginning, she's been kind of like hunted and hounded. You know, like she shows up on Earth and she's like immediately met with all this like xenophobia, and everyone who even tries to, you know, help her or whatever, whether it's Superman or someone else, always seems to have their own interest and heart more. So like she's just like this constantly angry, frustrated girl, and they even kind of have a little bit of a trope flip here. Like they do that thing where Supergirl thinks that she killed Lobo. She's like, oh no, I've killed the bad guy, I've crossed the line. She's all guilty about it. But then she sees Lobo come back, and now she's angry that he's not dead. She's like, well, fine, then I'm gonna kill him for real. Like that's just like Supergirl has just been this angry girl throughout her whole series, and it's been building up and building up and building up to the point where, yeah, now she's going to become a Red Lantern. Like, if you're not familiar with Lantern mythology, the idea being that each color spectrum among the lanterns like has a different emotion. And the Red Lanterns, like, their whole thing is like they're almost kind of like a Sith. Like, they're associated with anger. And like this Red Ring has like tracked down Kara as like this angry person. So yeah, at the end of Supergirl 28, you see that she's going to become a Red Lantern, which is kind of interesting because it seems like DC is really giving in to like the fanboy mentality. Like, you know, people always draw those manips. Like, you know, what if Wonder Woman was a Green Lantern, or Batman was a Yellow Lantern, or an Orange Lantern, or whatever. So now they're literally doing, like, you know, what if Supergirl is a Red Lantern? But not like, what if, like, she is a Red Lantern, it's happening.
Yeah, and I mean, it's going to last an arc, and then she's going to become good again because she's Supergirl. As much as they're going to try to play up gray areas with their heroes, DC is always going to be the virtuous ones. Even though she's misunderstood and she's angry, she's always still going to be Supergirl. And, like, she wears the red panties on the outside in this, which I love. And it kind of completes her look. So, I mean, like, this Red Lantern thing, it's going to be like a fun little gimmick that, like you said, it's going to play up to fanboy perceptions, but I really think that no matter what, she's going to return to being Kara and Supergirl, which it's where it should be.
I mean, they have to do something with it. 'Cause, I mean, the thing about Supergirl is, I'm sure there are fans of Kara who can tell you all about the character's history throughout the decades and stuff, and the different variations of her. But I mean, where the Supergirl character starts, I mean, she's just a Superman analog. I mean, like, literally, her name is just Supergirl. There was nothing more creative at the time than, hey, let's do a chick version of it.
I'm much more a fan of Power Girl, which is the same character, just a different version of her from a different Earth. I really like her. I like the Judd Winnick run of her. And I've actually read some Supergirl. I mean, Peter David did a fantastic run. He had the whole introduction of Pink Kryptonite where her and Power Girl actually got it on, which, I don't know, I found very funny, and I like Peter David's stuff. So, I mean, that was always really cool. But, like, this, it just kind of seemed like kind of very typical New 52 DC stuff going on, which really just pounded in that, you know, the Lantern's really popular right now. So we're going to pound the Lantern into this, too.
Yeah, man, the Lantern universe is even more expansive than the Superman one right now, isn't it?
Well, it's because the whole Johns thing, he really blew it out of proportion before New 52, and then, like, it was kind of kept under wraps for a little while there, but recently everything else has kind of gotten wrapped up and stuff. So it's all right, you know what I mean? There's worse things they could do. They could kill her, you know what I mean? Like, I'd rather have her become a Red Lantern than kill her, you know?
And there's your DC update. All right, so Spiking the Punch this week was sponsored by our radio home, psn-radio.com.
PSN Radio, the best in talk radio anywhere.
Next, we're going to... What should we do next? How about next we pity the fool?
Yeah, I pity that fool.
Johnny Alpha, who was the saddest little sack of shit this week in X-Men comics?
I'd have to go with the very lovely but sadly tragic Anna Cortez with her cry for help out of her situation that she kind of walked herself into, but definitely did not understand the full gravitas of her situation. And I pity her cute little butt.
Pity the fool. I pity the fool!
Ooh, that was a good one, man. That was a good one. Yeah, I pity the fool who screws up at the new Xavier school, man. Because Cyclops will straight up dump you on your ass.
Yeah, man, that sucks to be Hijack, that's for sure.
I get that Psych wants a squadron of soldiers, but couldn't Hijack have just been relegated to the kiddie table or something?
There's an angle here, man, I'm telling you. Like, he's not done. And Cyclops needed him to think that he was out for his plan to work out. I mean, I guarantee you that's what's going to work out here.
I hope so, man, because otherwise at least would have been nice to drop him off on Logan's doorstep. Maybe with a little sign on his pack that says, "You'll fit right in here, pussy."
Yeah, like, and let him have his phone. You can have a phone here, butt bunch. Brew can make it into a Rocket Pack phone for you. Woo!
Okay, and and sponsored this week by comicbook.com is our sexiest moment of the week.
Oh my.
Johnny, what do you got for me?
I have to say, in X-Men number 11, the bitchy cat fights between M and Rachel, that was just hot, man. I would have liked to have been a fly on that wall.
Not too shabby, man, and there was a lot to pick from this week. You've got Tempest upskirt, Cuckoo panty flashes, wardrobe damage on Tempest and Firestar. Selene was naked, Storm was super cleavagey as always. But I've got to go with the Tempest wardrobe damage in Uncanny X-Men, because I guarantee you they ripped her clothes and framed that shot just right to make it as absolutely visually appealing as possible.
Right, yeah, that was going to be like a runner-up, but like I didn't want to be too ambitious, but yeah, that was very hot.
Okay, so if you aren't watching them already, the interactive video site is at youtube.com/user/allaboutxmencomics. And the videos are a hell of a fun way to play along. That's all for now. See you next time.